Hey, this is Mark Moore, aka Tuxedo Mark, at various places on the internet. It's 2:27 p.m. according to the computer clock on Wednesday, June 12, 2013. And in this vlog, I'm going to discuss time travel in Star Trek, as I had mentioned earlier in my review of the 2009 film. This might be my last vlog for a while, because my mom comes home from her vacation late, like tomorrow night, but then she still has vacation until like the 18th, I guess. So I just won't have any opportunity to record any vlogs or anything like that. Unless I happen to be able to download Nintendo's press conference from E3, and if I want to feel like commenting on that. But I still got like 4.6 gigs of DC Universe Online to download. It's at like, I don't know, 73% or something. Okay, so time travel in Star Trek. What I'm going to talk about this mostly in regards to the alternate reality in the new films, basically. One of the writers, Roberto Orci, I think his name is, he had said that even though the first film dealt with time travel and dealt with a 24th century Romulan ship coming back in time, and they blew up Vulcan, they completely destroyed it, and then the Enterprise launches early, Kirk becomes captain before he's supposed to. He basically becomes he goes from cadet to captain, which is ridiculous, but anyway, the way that he explained this was that they're not altering the timeline. Everything that we have already seen on Star Trek still counts. Okay, it's like they're not overwriting the original timeline. The way that he explained this is that it just kind of branched off into an alternate reality due to Nero's temporal interference. What he cited as justification for this was a Next Generation episode called Parallels. And in that episode, Worf is shifting between universes. At one point, Data even says that Worf does not belong in our universe. Now, yes, Data does say that there's a relatively new theory in quantum mechanics that everything that can happen does happen, just happens in different quantum realities. Quantum realities, okay. Here's the problem with using it as a justification for the alternate reality in the new films. The episode Parallels did not deal with time travel. Okay? It dealt with Worf hopping between universes. Completely separate universes. Okay? Somehow, the writers of the new films have decided it can apply to time travel as well. And that if you go back in time and alter the past, you're not really altering the past. The past and the regular present and the regular timeline is still continuing on just fine. What you've done is created a new quantum reality. And they did insert a line in the film during the scenes on Vulcan when the students were training. There was some, you could barely hear it in the film from what I've read, but it does mention like quantum realities or something like that. And they use it as a justification. They're saying, look, we're not, we're not messing with Star Trek's history. We're just creating a new quantum reality, and we're just gonna do our own thing here. And here's the thing: that is not how time travel works in the Star Trek universe. Look at previous time travel stories. The City on the Edge of Forever. When McCoy goes through the Guardian of Forever, suddenly Kirk and crew on the Guardian world, they can't contact the Enterprise. It's not up there. Okay? Their universe was altered. Okay? Their reality was altered. And the only reason that they still existed was because they were on the Guardian world and it protected them from changes in the timeline or something. Okay, whatever. Look at Star Trek First Contact. Okay? The Borg Spear goes back in time, and suddenly Earth is populated entirely by Borg, and the only subspace communications are coming from Romulans. Because the Borg altered history in the past. They altered the timeline. And everything changed around the Enterprise crew. And the only reason that they were spared the changes in the timeline was because they were caught in a temporal wake. Okay, whatever, sure. The point is, time travel in the Star Trek universe alters the universe. It alters the original universe that the time travelers originated from. Okay? Never once is it mentioned or insinuated or shown or anything that traveling back in time in the Star Trek universe and altering history will leave the present time unaltered. Alright, so I think either the writers of the new films have misinterpreted parallels or are just flat out making stuff up right now to try and appease the fans and try to assure them that that the original series still happened. Because think about the ramifications of all of this. Assuming, and this has not been disproven in the new films, assuming that the original timeline has been altered, and now whichever way history goes now, that's it. That's all that there is. Okay, the destruction of Vulcan. The Enterprise launching early. Kirk taking command early. the 5-year mission starting early, because yes, in the new film they start the 5-year mission, but it's too early. And on top of that, they mention the mud incident as having occurred before the 5-year mission. Okay, so, and of course, okay, taking both of the new films into account, what can't happen now? Well, any episode set on Vulcan. I don't remember all of the titles of the original series episodes, so kind of bear with me on this, but stuff like Journey to Babel. Yeah, because Spock's mom died in the first film. Journey to Babel can't happen. Any episode involving Vulcan, really. What else? The mud episodes, I guess, would no longer count, or you'd have to see that they occurred earlier, like between the first and second films. And obviously, the Enterprise looks different. The bridge is no longer colored or anything. It's all white. Space Seed doesn't happen. Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan doesn't happen. The Next Generation has been altered by this too. Sarek can't happen. Unification has at the very least been altered. I would think. Yes, Sarek, I'm pretty sure. Sarek and Unification. I mean, they refer to past events, and they would have to, at the very least, be altered. First of all, Picard can't visit Sarek on Vulcan. Okay. The trouble with Tribbles. In that episode, it's insinuated this is the first time that they've ever met Tribbles, but now we know that they have been aware of Tribbles in Into Darkness. So that, at the very least, has to be altered somehow. And a lot of you out there could probably think of even more things that can't happen. Since Wrath of Khan doesn't happen, I would think Search for Spock wouldn't happen either. Voyage Home. Oh, jeez. It would at the very least be altered. I mean, you could maybe guess that Spock would still find out that the probe is looking for humpback whales, and maybe they could go back in time and pick them up. Okay, fine, I guess. But yeah, and on top of that, Starfleet's technology is greatly more advanced than it originally was. And the writers have kind of, they'll give an explanation in the story itself, but the explanation that they give is that what was that ship from the first film? Anyway, they scanned Nero's ship. Okay, so and the survivors took that information with them back to Starfleet on board the shuttlecrafts when they were evacuating the ship. Alright, so basically Starfleet studied all of this stuff, and they've basically built starships with 24th century technology in the 23rd century. Insofar as they were able to understand 24th century Romulan technology. So, the technology has taken an unnatural leap forward. Again, because of Nero's interference in the timeline. So much stuff is going to be so different now. You really can't say that the original series would occur, or Next Generation, or Deep Space Nine, or Voyager. The only series that does still count is Enterprise. Think about that. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the timeline has been altered. You just can't say, oh, it's an alternate reality, but the original timeline is still going on just as it ever was. No. Now, as for other examples of time travel stories, I mean, they've done Yesterday's Enterprise, which really doesn't make sense if you think about it, because the time travel was initiated in the past. Okay? The Enterprise C came forward in time. It was sent to what it perceived as the future, based on something that was initiated in its own time period. And yet, we see the timeline being altered on screen in front of us. Well, okay, this further proves that any interference in the timeline does alter the regular universe that we've always known. Now, but it doesn't make sense, because, and then even Guinan senses something is wrong. Okay, well, whatever, she's got like Jedi powers or whatever. Okay, fine. But the thing is, as far as the universe is concerned, that timeline where the Federation is at war with the Klingons should be the normal timeline. Okay? Because the time travel was initiated back then. So, really, you should think of it as, well, Tasha Yar never died, but she was never supposed to. And another thing, it really is a miracle that any alteration to the timeline can be undone, and presumably everyone, or at least all of the main and secondary characters, still exist. Because think about what you're doing when you're altering the timeline. It's not just altering one event and then unaltering it to set the timeline back to normal. When you're walking around in the past, you're running into people, you might have confrontations with people, you might stop someone to ask the time, or it could be like Archer and go and get some takeout. But anyway, The point is, you're interacting with people in the past. And it's those little things that can have a rippling effect. Because, okay, let's say that when Archer pulls into a drive-thru, the woman that takes his order originally had nothing to do. Or she was doing something else. She has to take the order, get his food, you know. Her rest of the day and rest of her life has been altered. It might sound silly, but stop and think about it. Little movements, little things that she has to do, takes her off the original track that she was on. Okay? Let's say she's married, or she has a boyfriend, or whatever, and they were going to have a child someday, perhaps even later that night. A person is conceived from one specific sperm and one specific egg. Okay? Let's say because Archer ordered fast food and she had to take his order, she's slightly off the track that she'd been on. She goes home. She makes whoopee, no pun intended, with her husband. But it happened a minute earlier. Or a few minutes later. Maybe the food that they were getting for Archer caused a spill or something that had to be cleaned up. Maybe she stayed after work like a minute or two later. Anything. Okay? So, there's no guarantee that the child that she would have conceived on that night will now have been conceived. Could be a different sperm fertilizing a different egg, or the same sperm fertilizing a different egg, or a different sperm fertilizing the same egg. In any event, that's a different child that was born or conceived. Okay? With the new films, Kirk had already been conceived. So we know we're dealing with the original Kirk. Spock, I think, is supposed to be at least as old as Kirk. I'm not sure. So, same Spock, too, probably. Chekhov is younger than Kirk. It's a different Chekhov. I mean, it just has to be. Pike's the same. Uhura, I'm not sure about. McCoy's the same. Scotty's the same. Sulu, not sure about. But yeah. There's no guarantee at all with time travel that the same population will still exist, even if the time travel, or even if the events in the past were altered back to normal. At least the major change is altered back to normal. There's still these little changes rippling throughout the world and throughout the universe, in Star Trek's case. What about the Borg attack in Montana in First Contact? People were killed there. Okay? Would they have had children if they hadn't been killed? Those children would not exist anymore. and neither with their children and their children after that, and so on. So that's why I say it really is a miracle that they could just unalter the timeline and everything's hunky-dory. Now, there are at least two cases where they take the odd approach of already being in the altered timeline, and it's just a matter of seeing it fulfill itself. First, there's the TNG two-parter Time Zero, where the time travel had already occurred, and the events that we see in the episode have already occurred, and Data's head was found in the cave. Okay? It's kind of an odd approach. And it's like, the investigation into why Data's head was in that cave leads them to the place that initiates the time travel. So it's like some kind of temporal. It's like a self-fulfilling time loop, for lack of a better term. The other one is Deep Space Nine's Children of Time, where we see the children of the Defiant crew when they crash on a planet, and they're informed in a few days when they get the ship fixed and they try to exit the planet's atmosphere, they'll be thrown back in time, where they'll land on planets in the past, settle the planet, and they'll have kids, and eventually their descendants will be born. And they get out of that. And when they scan a planet, they find out that those people no longer exist, or rather, never existed. How does that work? I mean, if we're already in the altered timeline, and then they decide to unalter it, how do they still remember these people? These people that never existed? Okay, but yeah, that's my point. My point is, time travel is very. First of all, you'll run into a bunch of problems, but even so, time travel is not something to take lightly, because anything that you do in the past will have some kind of permanent effect, even if you unalter the big event. And as much as the writers of the new films try to say that it's merely an alternate reality and you don't have to worry, I don't buy it. But yeah, if you want to share your thoughts on this, feel free to leave a comment. And that's all that I have to say. It's 2:56 p.m. and that's it. Thanks for watching.